This is a super great topic, and it's great timing for me because I'm just in the middle of launching a business on August 9th. As we enter the Lion's Gate, I'll be launching ARMAGARDEN.world.
It's so much more positive to look at it from I'm gonna build some tree. I'm gonna plant some trees, and I'm gonna make a food forest. And this is a longer term.
What about this preparedness and catastrophic event that is coming, right? And it is really interesting to see how everyone has different views.
Hello and welcome to the Permaculture podcast, where we talk about permaculture, careers, education and business. But today we have a roundtable on permaculture and preparedness. My name's Cormac, I'm your host, and we have three great guests on the day. Do you just want to introduce yourselves one by one there? Lindsay, you go first.
Sure, yeah. My name's Lindsay Brandon. I'm from Permaculture Canada, and soon ARMAGARDEN is the next company that's launching. And I'm based out of Calgary, Alberta, and I run a design team from up here, and we work online as well as do on-site consulting and design.
Scott, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Scott Miller. I'm from Thrive in the Future podcast. I'm in Northeast Kansas, and I also grow nut trees local to the Midwest with grownuttrees.com.
Great stuff. Eleanor?
Hi there, I'm Eleanor from Architects of Life, which I found. Permaculture designer. I work all over the world, especially with B2B clients and large-scale farmlands in whatever climate is needed.
Thanks. So today's topic is permaculture and preparedness. Lindsay, do you want to kick us off, please?
Sure. Yeah, this is a super great topic, and it's great timing for me because I'm just in the middle of launching a business on August 9th. As we enter the Lion's Gate, I'll be launching ARMAGARDEN.world, which is prepper-based, homesteader-based. So it's a company where we're working with the people that are already living this lifestyle. They want to do the work that's required to maintain a property, and also, have that consideration always in the back of their mind of the preparedness mindset, and also, considering their family and their communities, and just being a little bit more self-reliant in the world. So I'm super excited to see how this conversation unfolds.
Scott, what about you?
Yeah, so it's I started out as I got into permaculture through prepping, and one of the things that really stood out was in prepping, you're never good enough. It's never enough, and you're always kind of on edge and things like that. And it's so much more positive to look at it from I'm gonna build some tree. I'm gonna plant some trees, and I'm gonna make a food forest. And this is a longer term thing. I'm not going to get off my land or whatever else. And I think it's more comprehensive and more positive, at least I think so.
And Eleanor?
So this is interesting. I was visiting yesterday a farm called Ferme Légère, Light Farm. And they are in south of France, southwest, at the feet of the Pyrenees Mountains. And it was interesting because there was kind of 20 people visiting all together, and we got about this preparedness and catastrophic event that is coming, right? And it is really interesting to see how everyone has different views, and from my experience and from the different places that I visited all around the planet, I can say that yes, there's local, really degraded local places, but then there's really flourishing local places. So the preparedness is interesting when you live in a really degraded area with not a lot of resources around, and then you recreate your own ecosystem, right? And your own community around. But then the catastrophe is always local. And it's not because you have a catastrophe here that on the other side of the planet or just close by, you don't have ecosystems thriving. This is my vision, and it's one point of view.
So for me, don't really consider myself a prepper, but I don't know what does prepping mean. Like it's not the what do you call the sort of media, normal media would say a prepper's buried in a bunker and they've got their bug out plan and they're going to live in an underground bunker for 12 months if something should happen. I think more preparedness is about, especially in garden design, is planting varieties so that if one variety of apple fails, then you have another variety of apple, or you have different types of gardening so that you're sort of prepared for all sorts of weather, and then that builds your own food resilience as well. So the floor is open. Has anybody got anything else to say?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. I was just at the Midwest Preparedness Festival, which is a festival held in Kansas. I was there in June speaking at the festival. So I was, really integrated with a lot of people that were already living this lifestyle. They've been throwing this festival for like 20 years. So it was amazing to see this sense of community that they've created over being together for so long. It was just like a family reunion, right? And I feel like this is such an essential piece of what we're doing with permaculture in the world, is weaving that relationship back to people, back to the earth, and creating healthier dynamics and relationships. And I could see that all unfold in this festival, right? Where people were coming year after year. There's actually 3 festivals involved where you get tokens and, you get prizes for going to all 3 of these festivals in different locations and whatnot. So I really like how that the community aspect of what falls into preparedness is a really huge part.
Yeah.
Right. And like we talk about self-reliance, but in a sense, I feel like it's a little bit of a myth, because we're not looking to go, be a trapper in the woods and be isolated. That's one way, you could do that. That's very Canadian up here. But, if you really want to thrive, having that community element is such an important piece. Having those, the mixtures of skill sets, right? So we have somebody that can, be a carpenter, or somebody that can weld, or somebody that can make cheese. Like these dynamics are a really important piece of really making it work for people in terms of not just, being prepared for your own family, but really feeling secure in the fact that you have other people to rely on with other skill sets that maybe you don't.
And how are they bringing permaculture more into their preparedness?
I'd say they brought me in to talk and it was all about permaculture, right? So, and ARMAGARDEN was born out of that festival that I attended, right? Because I was meeting all these people, strategic military defense people and, hunters and like people that were already on the land, and weaving in these ideas of the preparedness or the homesteader mindset into design is something that I'm tackling right now on a bigger level. In terms of, what were those elements that I see? Because I feel like the homesteader community or the preparedness community, there's a lot of knowledge there in terms of, some permaculture elements, but weaving them together is kind of something that seemed new. And, when I finished the talk that I had done, I had more people ask questions for longer than the talk was about the content that I brought to the talk. So I could see that there was a little bit of a gap in the understanding of what permaculture truly is and how it operates on the landscape. But there was already a knowledge base in terms of working with the land. So I see there's a lot of potential there, and a lot of interest, right, for higher education on that matter and on that topic, so that people can really understand the concepts of permaculture to start to have their homesteads operating more efficiently.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lindsay, when you say that community is the key for creating a safe environment. We stack functions, right? So we stack all these knowledge And then we're stronger together. And even if each place is different at the end, the community is really the support piece. And there's people that are going to come. There's people that are going to go. It doesn't need to be all the same people all the time. And we need that skill exchange. But definitely to go on, we need people. So, and the vision of permaculture is often reduced to annual garden, right? So there's also this vision to change. Maybe you want to talk about regeneration, and then you see people that, you know, like the stars in others person's eyes, because it's different. It's not permaculture, even if it's part of it, but it's another word. And regenerating always talks more, right? It speaks more to anyone than just permaculture. What is permaculture? So that's that the words are very important, and how we use them as well. I don't know if you agree, Scott, Cormac, or if you have different experience about it.
Yeah, I just got Ben Falk's new book, his new edition of The Resilient Homestead, and one of the things he says in the intro is that he had an argument with the publisher that using resilient in the title was more effective and more hit people where they lived than using permaculture. Not that there's anything wrong with permaculture, but you know, that people want to be resilient, right? And especially in tough times. I mean, Cormac, you have folks that are setting up consults with you because they want to make their place the place where their family can go when stuff gets tough, right? And we're starting to see more of an interest in that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely, especially the UK is kicking off a bit as well. All this controversy seems to be happening everywhere at once.
Yeah.
So it is a bit. So the language is definitely important. Scott, you said you came from an interest in prepping, and that led you towards permaculture. Do you want to tell us about that a bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I started one day. My friend and I were working in downtown Kansas City, and there were protests outside, and they told us to go home because they weren't sure we would be able to get out of there in the middle of the protest. So then we had a thought experiment: was what would you do if you couldn't get home? And that led to the classic bug out bag and the, you know, and everything. And then we bought our rural land after that. So to become more self-reliant and more resilient. So, and as well as to have our animals. So we've got 2 horses, a donkey, and a whole bunch of chickens.
Yeah,
Right.
that's awesome that you have land. Like that's one thing, you know, I'm renting, I'm in the city. I've been after trying to get land for many years now, and it's, you know, it's not getting any less expensive. I'm actually going tomorrow to look at a piece of land, you know, and really I feel like that's for me, it's like a nervous system thing, like feeling stuck in the city, right? I'm renting in the city, and it's like, well, if something goes astray, if the city goes wrong, you know, where do I go? Right. And yeah, I can drive down to my parents' acreage and I can bunker up in their place. But, you know, having my own piece of land somewhere in the woods, you know, I feel like that's just going to be a sense of peace that I haven't felt in a very, very long time, just to be able to know that I have somewhere that I can go that's really far away from all of the noise. And you know, I can just really just live a good life in the woods, in the mountains, right on the river. Really. And that's like a dream for me to be able to do that. Even if there's nothing, absolutely nothing on the land right now, just to have that little piece to call home, I think would change the entire trajectory of how I operate in life, just knowing it's there.
Yeah. And I think we'll get to the point where I saw a post where somebody said, I went around, I couldn't afford land. So I went around to some of my neighbors and said, hey, you've got a part of your yard that you're not using. Could I create a garden there and I'll share the produce with you, or they work out some deal. Right. And I think we're going to get to that point with community, say I've got a part of a section of my driveway down towards the bend where it's close to the street, it's by water. I'm not doing anything with it. I could turn it into a garden and let somebody from my community garden there. I think we're going to get to that point as well.
Yeah, I don't have much land. I live in an urban setting, but it's that function stacking as well of permaculture design and your preparedness. Like having the you don't need a big space to keep some animals, rabbits, chickens. They feed your garden, so that if anything does happen outside, trying to design them systems in to your property, whatever your size. I don't think you need the big bug out location, or you can just do what you can. That and I think the most important thing is permaculture as a skill, so that if you do have to bug out, that at least you're coming with knowledge and know how to do these things, rather than stacking a pile of food, because somebody could just come and take it if the worst came to the worst. So it's having them skills, and I think permaculture is a great skill for your preparedness strategy.
And it's also super important to educate the young kids, right? And this is preparedness as well. Like, educate your kids to be able to be at your level when you're operating in the garden, when you need to cook something, when you need to, take care of all this system when the time comes, if it comes, right? You don't want to, you want help, right? So it starts within the family, with the kids. It starts also with having enough space to store food, cool space, right, and ventilated. Yesterday, the farm had dug a little, there was a small hill, and then they dug a hole in it, and there was a kind of fridge, right? But it was very, very humid. So you need also to think of the systems that will host your food, right? And not to make them attacked by rats or any mold. So preparedness is really thinking of a lot of different little things that at the end create your system, and you need people to manage the system as well. So it's basically a long thinking process. It also comes with, what type of cooking devices I use. The farm had 7 types of cooking, right? So you have the rocket stove, you have the solar parabolic system that we ate something cooked in this, and it goes very fast, right? So it's multiplying all those types of heating or cooling or cooking, so that if one breaks or you don't have sun, then you have another one, right? How do you heat your house? Those guys had put veranda, windows, and the house from 12 degrees Celsius in winter was heating up until 17 passively degrees Celsius, right? So it's and then they had a thermosiphon without electric pump. So what you do is basically you have thermal solar panels placed at the bottom of the house, like on the first floor, and then by suction it goes into those big balloons that heat the water. So it was the heat, the water heated by those solar panels was going up in the house, because the water, when it gets heated up, like it rises, and then it was sucked up. It was heating that balloon and then heating up the water in the house, right? So it's like, and without a pump. So it's like, how do you imagine all those systems? And of course, they had electrical solar panels, like solar panels for electricity. So it's like, imagining all this.
Yeah, all the off grid, right? Like getting off
Yeah.
grid, getting away from those systems. Like that's a huge piece. And you mentioned like timeline. Like that's another huge piece, is the way, the way that people approach their land and look at that timeline, right? That's a major consideration, for sure, in terms of like, well, what am I going to grow now? Sure. But yeah, okay, a bear just ate that. So, what, like the perennial trees that you're growing down there, Scott, like all those sorts of things, like weaving those into rotational grazing plans and whatnot, it's just a completely different design scenario. Yeah, and I love what you talk about, Eleanor, what you experienced at that farm, and like solar showers and things like that, and all these things that are really like, there's a lot of stuff that people can do with, very little, even free material, found material, to kind of like boost up these systems, like create your own composting toilet and have your own solar shower and build yourself a greenhouse. And it's a lot about, like that ingenuity and being able to like kind of think outside that box, but also have those skills to do those sorts of things. And I think that, people in the preparedness community they have that, where they have this, like, they want to know for themselves how to do it, right? They want to receive the information. They're going to dig it out, right? They're going to go looking for it, who's done this and how did they do it? And they're, willing to experiment and to try and to play and not be so rigid on, like, the systems elements of things that I think that a large, part of humanity might feel better being put into a box with very clear guidance. I think that there's, a lot more wiggle room for creativity in the systems design.
And there's also something that was mentioned yesterday. It's know your trees, right? So there's a lot of evergreen or deciduous trees that are in the landscape and that we plant for windbreak or for as canopy trees. But basically, they have all the micronutrients that are lacking in our annual vegetables, even if we are producing them, right? So I was like, I really want to learn more about those, the property of each tree, right? That we find in our climate and that we use for windbreaks or hedgerows or fodder. Because if I know about, their properties, then why having this big space for annual garden when I can find the same nutrients in trees, right? Or can I just reduce the space of the annual garden? Annual garden just works like 5 to 6 months per year, yeah, right? But the trees here forever. So yeah, it depends. It depends on the climate zone. Yeah.
I wish.
And then for an annual garden, you need to build a greenhouse, right? So it's like a lot of work. You need to compost. A tree is there, right? Like you cuddle it, of course. But so changing also this point of view and like upgrading to something else and including also those trees, I think that's like a huge area of interest to include in the design, in the project, in the implementation.
So we're all designers here. So when we approach a property from a preparedness perspective, what's the sort of top 1 or 2 things that you would consider in order for someone to boost their preparedness strategy on their property? Is it what do you call it? The food, water, shelter?
Definitely water.
Energy?
Water.
Yeah,
okay.
water. Yeah, here in Kansas, we don't get April showers bring May flowers. We get a bunch of drought, and then dumping thunderstorms in May and June, and then a bunch of drought. So trees and everything else, you're famously, even the pioneers who came out here, they'd run out of water, and the creeks would go dry, their ponds would go dry, and everything else. So water's a big deal.
Yeah, and then outside of like the geographical location and the climate, I would say it's the access, how you're getting around from one place to another, and like what those structures are on site, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I need to design a property that is going to hold and host years of life, I am planning really to integrate, to recreate the ecosystem, basically. Integrating animals, even if the people are vegetarian, we don't know, but integrating animals for easy maintenance, right? For entertaining the pasture and revitalizing the pastures. Definitely planting windbreak, re-infiltrating the water in the ground, recreating that water table. So I first start really to look at, even before the, producing food. And I think all of the permaculture designers are in this mood. We really look at how to restore the land and bringing back to a decent level of life and biodiversity. And then once we get there, the phasing of the project is, what do we plant in order for the system to be even more biodiverse, right? So how do you integrate complexity, but at the point where you get, each time you increase your comfort zone and your comfort zone, you need to be comfortable enough with the maintenance of the previous zone to expand, right? So how do you integrate that? And this is where you need to double functions, stack functions, and create redundancy, right, in your system. Like for the water, you can have the well, you can have a ditch, you can have rainwater capture systems, ponds, all sorts of different water features. How do you capture snow? I was talking today to Doug Crouch from 3EO Permaculture. And how do you capture snow? Like snow fences, right? That slowly rehydrate the aquifer. So all these kinds of things. It's not easy, and it's a process, and it takes time. It's not because now you want to be prepared that a design and an install will make it like in 1 year. You can, but probably you can have your little annual garden and perennial garden on the first year, but then at the same time, your goal is to recreate that ecosystem that will be perennial and resilient and regenerate itself.
Yeah, I liked what you said about windbreaks and creating those microclimates. So out of the last 4 years, we've had a late frost into May, 2 of those 4 years. And last year I only had apples on one side of the tree because half of it got froze out. This year, even though our frost was on time, or right on the traditional last frost date, the peaches and the pears bloomed earlier than usual, and they got frosted out. So we have no pears and no peaches this year. So yeah, creating the microclimates. I'm starting to grow Chicago hardy figs, and they need to go on a south side of a wall or something where they're sheltered, and then they might freeze down to the ground, but put enough hay on and things over them and straw over them in the wintertime so that they come back. But really taking into account the microclimates so that they're not north facing. We're seeing more of that. That's going to be important.
That's interesting because there is in Italy there is a place where actually they get cold snaps, And to avoid the the frost, the frost on those blooms, they plant late variety, late blooming variety, and they plant them on the north side, like on the north slope, right? So they flower later, and you don't have those those cold snap that come in May, right? And this is one of the strategies that they use. Maybe it can be interesting, like to see in different parts of the property, right, of your property, like how they interact.
Sure.
Just a thought.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And out in the Kootenays, there's a Zero Fox tree crops. Look up Brian Goldstein. He's also a producer like yourself, Scott, and he's doing some really interesting stuff where he's getting away from the strict genetics, and then also working with his community. So it's like if somebody has a pear that ended up blooming late, that missed that frost, find out who that is, and propagate from that tree so that you can start to create your own genetics bioregionally. And I think that's something that's going to happen more and more and more as, there's increased interest in doing this kind of thing. And hopefully, maybe we can change policy on some of those eco buffers and get some edible trees instead of just, non-producing whatever they chose to be a windbreak, because it was easy or whatnot. So I think that there's like a ton of potential in terms of, working with bioregional genetics and getting away from being in the systems box where it's ABC and it looks like this and all of that. So I think there's a lot of potential for you, Scott, to also do something like that. Even he would go on a Facebook group and say, he needed some Nankings or something. Who's got a really highly producing Nanking right now? And, little old lady will send him a bag in the mail of Nankings, and then, but it's producing a lot. Show me a picture of your tree. What does it look like? Tell me how it's been behaving. And then, create from there, right? You don't have to be stuck on, it's been, produced in this lab and it's this perfect species. It's like, does it really matter in the scheme of things? Can I eat it? Is it going to produce? And that's really all we're after, really, I think, as, just a layman even, or just somebody planting on their own land.
Yeah, definitely. I know I interviewed Brendan from Posterity Cider Works back in January, and he drives around in California, and all of these abandoned homesteads have trees that are flowering and blooming, and then he'll talk to the landowner and say, hey, it looks like you have an apple up there, and there'll be some lost variety from 100 years ago when California started the apple market, and then it bottomed out in the 40s or something like that. And then he'll get scions from them and work out something where he'll get some of the apples and figure out what they were. And he's rediscovering some old varieties. So that's kind of exciting. Plus it's like a treasure hunt,
That's the key. That's like, how do you observe your environment? Are you able to observe your environment, and are you able to recognize that tree on that mound getting so much wind and so much cold is the only tree that is surviving? And are you able to go up there and to recognize the species and to say, yeah, that's my windbreak, I want to plant a row of windbreak, a row of trees like this. It's really like getting this observation and making associations, and you get it. It's simple. Just think differently.
How do you implement preparedness into your own gardens? And how do you mix permaculture and...
Yeah, so one of the things I use is when I create a new garden bed, I use a broad fork, and my soil is super hard clay. So I use a broad fork and I turn over the side, and then I put a little layer of compost, and then I put down milpa seed, which is like a mix of 20 or so seeds. It has buckwheat. It has just basically everything mixed together, cowpeas and things like that. And then I'll put those down, and that will give me some yield while it's building soil I can slash it, and then I'll have mulch for the winter time. And that's generally my strategy for new garden beds. And I've been having a lot of success with that.
Yeah, I've been gardening out at my parents' acreage they've had for 14 years. So, they've had the annual garden generally in the same spot. This is the biggest year that I've put more inputs than any other year. And I planted, 40 berry bushes and some trees, some peach trees and cold hardy trees. We'll see if they make it. And then, companioned everything up, gilded everything up with perennials, and had to put cages on there because we've got moose that will devour all the trees. Like they'll just eat everything of that thing. So, building cages, and then we have the annual garden kind of separate from everything else because it's just like rock hard compaction out there. Looking at a monoculture crop field, it's in the middle of the prairies. It's as flat as you can get. They've been running machines on it before we purchased it, of course. And so, the soil is just compacted like crazy. And there's glyphosate and industrial farming every direction that you can possibly look. So we planted trees a long time ago. That was kind of the first thing that we did to kind of stop that with that sprays, and to also, create some northern wind protection for us, and, gather snow and whatnot. But out there, it's really important for us to be covering up the soil, of course. So we're putting straw on top of the soil. We're always keeping it covered and throwing the compost into the garden and things like that. And we just, this year put in a medicinal garden on the side of the annual garden for more herbaceous plants, as well as, flowering perennials that we can make tinctures out of. And I like to work in a concentric pattern where I'm working in a circular way. And the circles just kind of get bigger and bigger every year, because in Canada we don't have, space issues really in that location. So the garden can get as big as it wants, right? So as long as they live there, I'll just keep on expanding their plantings. And then I'm treating their, it's along the eco buffers, kind of where I put a lot of the berry bushes, because it's already protected there from the northern winds. It's going to gather a ton of snow to be able to water those newly protected berry bushes. And I'm actually utilizing it more of a nursery space for the land that I'm trying to manifest in my life right now. So hopefully they won't be staying there too long. And if they do, that's fine. I can propagate off of there. And so that's what I'm up to right now. Here in the city, I have a perennial garden. I'm renting a place. It's 7-year perennial garden. Whoever was here before has beautiful flowering things all year round. I don't touch it. I don't do a thing to it. I don't have to water it, and it's gorgeous. And there's something flowering in every different part of the yard. And they were taking, it looks like they took some cactus down from, some of the national parks and put it in the front bed. That's not a normal thing to have prickly pear cactus in Calgary, Alberta in your front yard. So I've been blessed with kind of just ending up renting a place that is a perennial garden that I don't do anything with, and really couldn't, because there's so many squirrels and birds and rabbits and hares, giant hares, that if I plant anything edible in the ground, it will be eaten. So I would have to put it in a raised bed with a mesh over top. That's all you see around here in the neighborhood that I'm in. I'm pretty right in the city, but there's just that much wildlife activity that I'm better off growing out in the prairies where my parents are.
You can, have you tried eating prickly pear? That's something they cook in Mexico. So
yeah, no, I haven't eaten this one. I've been stabbed by it a multitude of times. Like the spines on it are like this, right? So like getting close to it is a challenge in itself. I could probably get a machete maybe and like go for it. But I like how beautiful it is and the flowers. But yeah, I have heard it's edible. I haven't tried it myself yet.
Okay, yeah, probably the spiky ones are a little bit, less welcoming at sight. And maybe for, I know the ricin, the plant. So I don't know if you can grow it in Alberta, but if the hardiness zone allows it, ricin is natural deterrent for moles, for mice. So why not trying it? You'll see. And yeah, so regarding my way to to prepare myself, I prepare myself more for the times when I come back, because the house that I live in is a family house, and I am more on projects around than at home during the year. So what I really want to, and what I've really been working on, has been creating a perennial garden that can just be resilient and sustainable by itself. So there's a lot of things that I tried, and each year I change and I try new stuff. Something that worked really well is a thornless blackberry. It has created hedges in 3 years. I already harvested like some 7 kilos or of blackberries, and you can eat the leaves as well. You can cook them. I planted strawberries. It was good, but the slugs were eating them. So I just replaced, and the yield was like nothing compared to the thornless blackberries. So I just replaced the strawberries with thornless blackberries that now it's giving so much. Then I have raspberries as well that are growing. This year I'm not watering them, so it's another test. I planted, and they're doing, they're assessing them. Last year they were watered with drip irrigation, and they were abundant, like the harvest was abundant. This year I'm still I'm still waiting, but I want to observe. Like this is tests. Then I have I planted. I think I have like 20 different fruit trees on like 600 square meters or so of garden. So I filled up each and every niche, and I planted around the leach field, so that I'm not on it, but my trees are just benefiting from the all the nutrients. Then I installed different compost bins in the garden, in which I planted chayote, which is a type of squash. It's a vine, and now I'm looking at where it's thriving best. So all this type of planting, all those type of experiments, planting also Brazilian guava on the south side and on the north side, see how it goes. And I'm also trying to think of how I can make my house resilient. So it's not just the garden, it's how can I avoid using too much electricity, too much heat. So I've been thinking, about this veranda thing, and that could easily replace a new fire, like fire stove that would be installed and that would consume wood. For now, we are working with the gas, right? We are heating up with the gas. But I think the veranda would be really good on the south part, and also replacing the windows and having like the double
Pain.
yeah, probably and the isolation. So it's also like, how do you make your house better in a way that it keeps the thermal mass, right, and it gives it back when it needs.
Yeah, like that with the house. Like for gas, we have mains gas for the heat, but then they offered I got the line run to the kitchen for the cooking gas, and I thought, no, I'll keep the gas on the bottled gas. So if the electric is out, I still have something to cook.
Yeah.
And then we have
Good.
the wood stove. We have the wood stove as well. So if the electricity ever went out, we have the available stove. Then can heat the house. The gas can run the cooker. So it's small things like that that I try with a house. I'm going to insulate the house this year, so the heating bill comes down. So basically, things that you would do, you should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Never mind in a preparedness situation. This year as well, I'm trying to build out, bringing back my chickens because I got rid of them because I was going to move, but now I'm staying. And now it's just like building. I've tried over the last I've been here 12 years in this house, and over the last 10 years, I've always had kids under the age of 5. So having that time, I'm getting some time back now. So I'm going to bring back the chickens. The kids want rabbits, they want guinea pigs. So it's going to be like a zoo here. But then all them animals will have a job and they'll have a function. So whether it be providing manure, don't tell the kids, but
Yeah.
providing meat for the rabbits.
Oh.
They say here, we also say here, when you get rid of a dog, it's like, guys, away to the farm. So the rabbits will be going to the farm.
If you have chokeweed, the rabbits eat the chokeweed, you know. So
Yeah, so I like the fact that rabbits, you can feed them grass. So yes, they'll be cute, they'll be cuddly, they'll provide meat, and as well, you can feed them on fodder. You can go out and harvest grass off the side of the road if you're stuck, and you'll still be able to feed them. So it's animal systems is what I'm really trying to concentrate on because of the we have a slug problem this year. You said eat the strawberries. They've ate most of my strawberries. The only strawberries they didn't get was the hanging baskets.
oh, okay.
But the raspberries have done well. So this year I'm going to dig up the raspberries and spread them out along the front. So then it gives me more raspberries. So just basically things that work, and then just multiplying them out. And fruit trees as well, taking scions, multiplying them out as well, and just trying to squeeze as much on this small space as possible.
I'm
But at
doing
the
the
same
same
time-
with the. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, at the same time, just keeping it looking nice. And then so
Yeah.
this year, so over the last 10 years, I've tried different things. This year now, I think I've designed a system that I'm able to go and incorporate all of them without all the work, and it'll just be more manageable, especially with the kids being up a wee bit.
I had
my plan.
blueberries planted and they work really well. So I'm just propagating them a lot.
Yeah, well, I moved my blueberries this year to the front door, and it's the first year I've got blueberries because I can see them changing the color when they're about to ripen. So I
Oh,
get them
wow.
before the birds do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big challenge for us too. It's like as soon as the Saskatoons are ready, it's like you gotta pick them that day, or they're just gonna be, one swoosh of birds will come and devour the whole thing right away. And then you brought up a point too, like it gets to be minus 50 here. And I think it's kind of crazy that people don't consider that, when we're all natural gas here. And anytime I've moved, which has unfortunately been a lot, having a fireplace inside and outside the house has been my non-negotiable. It's like, how can people feel really safe knowing, it's going to be minus 50 here in the winter every year, at least once, it's going to get really bitter cold, not to be able to keep yourself warm. Like, it's a pretty important consideration. And I think that there's definitely a huge lack of awareness around that. I think that a lot of people don't think about that. I'd like to see more of those conversations coming about, on a larger scale. And maybe that is something that'll probably come about with all these, as we have more environmental disasters and fires and things like that. It's stimulating a really amazing thing. So for example, here in Calgary, we had this giant water main break. So we were on water restrictions. People were getting, mud coming out of their taps.
Wow.
In one of the oldest communities in town for over a month. They didn't have access to the water. They were told they were going to have some, water carts or whatever that they could go out to, but they were on a boiled water advisory for over a month. And this is like a big city in Canada, right? So, but what came of that I love is that there was such intense water restrictions everywhere. They were going to fine you if they saw you outside with your watering can, planting all your seedlings that you planted. So, of course, there's a trickle down from that. But a lot more people suddenly are rainwater capturing, right? So they never thought about it before, but now they were forced into considering these things. And I'm like, yes, amazing. Good results from whatever is going on over there. And then we have the fires. We're constantly on fire, right? This is not something that was happening, in my youth growing up where, every year by August, there's no campfire you don't go camping with a fire here anymore in August. Like, it's been at least 6 years where, we have so many fires constantly. And I won't get into where those are coming from, but it's also encouraging people to think differently. So anytime we get towards these like ecological shakeups, I'm kind of looking for that gem of wisdom to be found. One of the ones that came out of the fires was I met some guerrilla foresters. These guys are awesome, right? They're just regular Joes that want to do this. So they're finding burn lots and they're moving trees around on contour. They don't even have to move the land. They're looking for opportunity for guerrilla reforestation projects in the Kootenays.
Cool.
I love it. It's amazing. Like, this is what people are doing for fun. And, people are seeing that there's promise and there's like opportunity to be purchasing these burn lots, right? These places that are all completely burned down. It's like, suddenly it's affordable land. And it's a perfect regeneration project. Like, why wouldn't you want to buy that? Most people would look at that and go, oh, I don't want to buy that. But it's like, well, you can turn that around a lot quicker without, completely changing a system. Work with the disturbance that has come. You're going to get a lot of nourishment from the soil with the carbon increase and all that comes from the burn. There's a lot of bountiful birth from these fires, that are so essential and so important and used to be part of regeneration of our planet that happened naturally, that we've, of course, quashed and not allowed, and for all those reasons I don't want to get into. But, I encourage others to kind of like look at these sorts of things as a, not the big fear response that maybe you're put into, but it's like, it's an opportunity that's being presented and it's actually educating the public about regenerative practices. Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how with preparedness comes the awareness that you belong to a bigger ecosystem, that you need to take care of it, and that the ecosystem will eventually take care of you if you do the right thing, right? So it's fun how people change their mind and start looking at things and feeling differently when an event when events like this come, right?
Yeah. You mentioned
That's a great
property there.
story.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was mentioning property, like you said, it looks bad property, but it's actually quite good. There's a property here. It's been on the market for 2 years, and it's on a slope. There's a lake at the top. Now you don't have rights. You don't have rights to the lake, I don't think, but it borders a lake. But somebody normal would look at it and go, "Oh, that's rubbish." But I'm looking at it and going, "Oh, a lake at the top. It's perfect preparedness property." Slopes down. It's just not flat, and you can't plunk a house on it. And I think the only thing on it at the minute is sheep. Sorry?
What's the orientation?
It's south facing.
Oh.
Make
and
a tree house.
it's like it's like €8,000 an acre. And it's like, it's the perfect property. I just don't have the money yet to buy it, but if it was there, it would be like the perfect property that people might, look at it and go, "Oh, that's no good. It's burnt." So to me, it's the perfect sort of. It would be a recreational property as well that you could own. It's about an hour away, so you could go there at the weekend, work on it, and still have your life in the city. So it's interesting.
Do you have the key point on the property? The inflection point?
No, I haven't looked at it that. I just looked at south facing. It's just I haven't done a design on it. It's just like I look every month to see if it's still there.
Okay, cool. Well, next time look at this, because that's where you might find a spring.
Yeah, I haven't looked that deep on it. Sorry, what were you going to say there, Scott?
Oh yeah, just I really like the idea of buying those burned out lands and things like that. That's I've never heard about that before. That's a good idea.
There's a lot of them.
Exciting. Oh yeah, there is. Yeah.
But people are benefiting, right? Like now you can buy fireweed honey for $18 a jar for a little jar this big. It's pure fireweed honey, right? Like people know how to.
What's fireweed honey?
Fireweed, it only grows after a fire, so it's like it's this beautiful beautiful purple flower, and it's really stunning actually when you see it. You drive through these barn lots and it's all black charred trees and then this beautiful bed of purple flowers on the bottom. So
Oh,
I'm
wow.
guessing they've gone into areas where there's big burn lots, put the hives in there, and then you get fireweed honey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never
Ah,
heard of
it's a
that. That's
beautiful
interesting.
one. Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at this right now. Wow. Wow.
It's delicious. Try to get my kids to keep their hands off it. Not succeeding.
Yeah, that's us heading up the hour now. Lindsay, do you just want to tell us more about ARMAGARDEN as well, as sort of how
Yeah,
that came
sure.
about and what it's about
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
you can help people?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for that. So ARMAGARDEN is, well, I'm working with the two companies, and there's value in, talking about both of them to understand what they're about. So permaculture is that large scale outward moving energy, considered maybe more feminine, right? So it's like this. Oh, here we got to go with this camera. So that's the Permaculture Canada World company. But ARMAGARDEN, like you're asking about, is the inward moving energy. Oh, come on, focus, silly thing. Doesn't want to do it. Oh, well. Anyways, it's the inward moving energy. So it's about, it's more personalized. It's about my house and my family and my community. So it's a different focus in terms of what the companies are offering. So it's reaching out to the community. If you want to be a homesteader and you want to do this community thing, or you want to do a large scale demonstration site or a festival grounds, and that's what I'm designing through this, having that community is such an essential piece of making it work. A lot of people have this idea, oh, I want to do this great thing, I want to have this demonstration site, I want to teach everybody, and then when it comes time for install, you really want to weave people into the project for it to be successful and proliferate in your area. It's not like you're just going to all of a sudden have a demonstration site and bing, there's the community, right? So it's really an important piece to, work with people in that way about, how can you integrate your community? Is it already operating, right? So I have a demonstration site where it already is really successful, so it's really great to work from that model to see what is working to teach others how to do the same. So yeah, ARMAGARDEN is, it's coming from the prepper mindset and the homesteader mindset in terms of, having your bases covered for your food, your water for now and later on, your medicine for now and later on, but also weaving in, elements into the design when we're talking about the buffer zones around your property. We're addressing those in a different way. We're addressing the medicine factor, being able to have your own emergency medicine growing on site and working, with different climate zones, of course, and changing those plants accordingly. But we're also working into, how do you work with those relationships? So like, it's the things you can't see, right? The relationships between people and what kind of resources do you have in your area? And who has what, and can you pool your resources together to make large purchases for the community? Can you share your equipment in some way? How many children do you have in your area? How are we going to educate these people? Do you have a site for, ceremony? Things like this. So it's like, what are these elements that we think so? Yeah, like what are the elements that we're looking for and what people coin right now? Eco community, right? And I think that's kind of an outdated way to talk about it. I like ARMAGARDEN. It tends to be reflective of the times. Everybody kind of gets the reference. I think when I say it, everybody knows what a garden is, so they kind of get that element that this is about gardening, we'll say, to keep it in layman's terms, but it's also, taking it to the edge of the transition that we're at in humanity right now. And what's becoming more important to people is, I think, relating to each other. I think ethics is really coming up, living from a place of truth, living a life you love is more important. And I think more people are encouraged to take that path over follow the box lifestyle that we've all kind of, it's been a lot of years where we've kind of been on this ancestral lineage of, that story. I'm sure you can guess what I'm tapping into there, but the times are changing, and ultimately it's about, we only have so many hours on this planet, and where are those life hours going? And I kind of want to get back to a better quality of life, simpler living, more connected, nourishing relationships, all these things that are like super important for mental wellness, for creative development and expression in the world. It all stems from having these basic needs met, right? Having your food, water, shelter, clothing, but nourishing relationships is one of those things. So the community aspect is a super important piece of ARMAGARDEN, and it's kind of a way to bridge regenerative practices with permaculture, with community and lifestyle all into one. Yeah, that's my little spiel.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it launches on August 9th. So I'm super excited. It's a new moon yesterday, and it's a perfect time for it. And so keep your eyes out. It'll be at armagarden.world. And the whole design team at Permaculture Canada is supporting that company as well. So we have a team of 9 designers. And then we have a Nebula as well, which is 3 support staff that do mental wellness in the workplace, HR, as well as communication to strengthen exactly what I'm hoping to do through these companies within the company themselves. So, really operating from a place where people feel supported, people have their, have a support for their mental wellness if they need it, assistance with communication if needed. These are really important things I don't know are in the current corporate business model. So trying to change that a little bit. And then we have soil consultation as well. And we are looking at creating a couple of apps that I don't want to talk too much about just yet, but looking into research and quantification and gamification of what we're doing. Yeah.
Great stuff. So when do you sleep?
You know what? This is part of it. This is part of, I quit 2 of my jobs like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And I started 2 new companies, and I redesigned my life as well. So, I'm operating from a different place on a different frequency, different number of hours in a day are allotted for this kind of thing. And I am functioning way better, right? Less is more in terms of how we operate in the world and how present we can be with people when we really take care of ourselves first and our needs first and don't overwork ourselves. So yes, I am doing a lot. But I think it's just like managing priorities. What's in front of me right now? Yes, the to-do list is longer than I can ever achieve, but I have full faith in how it's unfolding and really enjoying in life at the same time, right? I was saying at the beginning, I've got a dry pack and I put my iPad in it, and I take my stand-up paddleboard and I go to the mountains, and I go and I do creative writing for 2 hours. So that's kind of how I'm operating as a business person in the world, right? I'm not sitting at a desk 8 hours a day. It's just not going to happen. I'm taking my work to the road. I'm doing a lot of touring and videotaping for my Rumble channel, which is Regen Life, about, other permaculturalists. How are they doing it, and sharing that as well. So really creating a life that I enjoy, life by design, and also doing the work that I absolutely love. I'm feeling super stoked about everything.
Awesome. I watched the 2 videos. Very good. I've enjoyed them both.
Awesome. Thank you.
So
there's so many knowledgeable people, right? Like they're like miniature courses. You watch these tours that I'm doing, and so many awesome ways of approaching things, right? So you've got the really high end things, and you got the do-it-yourselfers and everything in between. So it's just to show people, like, look, they're doing it. You can too.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Scott, do you want to just tell people about your podcast a bit more? Thrive in the Future. I'm a regular listener. You want to just share what it's about and how that links to permaculture and preparedness?
Sure. So Thrive in the Future, we're coming up on 3 years, and the whole focus is to focus on positive solutions. You know, especially in times like this, there's so much noise out there where everybody's talking about the latest, whatever. And we made a choice in the middle of COVID. We didn't even talk about COVID for our first year. We talked about the solutions, the things we were talking about on the way to going to events, creating community. What's community look like to you? How to redesign your intentional life, and then what are you doing for your fall garden? Things like that. So I had Jason Thomas from Regeneration Nation, Costa Rica on last week, and we were talking about redesigning your intentional life, or designing your intentional life. And then also out of that, I've struggled with getting chestnut trees or nut trees to survive in Kansas. So I started growing my own varieties. I went down to the local elementary school and started picking up chestnuts that my friend planted these trees years ago, thinking that he was going to teach the kids how to roast chestnuts by the open fire. The school put a kibosh on that right away. So nobody's picking these up. So I just went down and picked them up and started sprouting them out in buckets of sand. Had enough where I started selling some locally and also online. So that's been a good new opportunity as well. So those are the things that I have going on.
Thanks. Well, hopefully you have
at
least 2 new listeners after.
Yeah. It's thriveinthefuture.com, and then the tree site is grownutTrees.com.
Thanks, Scott. Eleanor, do you want to
Thank you.
tell us what you're up to at the minute?
Sure. So I operate with under 2 names. I operate with architectsoflife.earth, which is tailored to B2B. So it's regenerative design and permaculture for businesses. It can be hotels, resorts, recreating ecosystems where you wouldn't even imagine, educating the staff. It's also for schools, all levels, from the primary school to university, and really focused on businesses and engaged landowners, right? But I'm more focusing on how can people from the matrix that do not know anything about permaculture and regenerative world, how do they access something so simple, right? So people that are already in this movement, like private landowners, they start to be interested, right? And they reach to you. But how do businesses get conscious about what we can do? So this is for them. Architects of Life is for them. Architectsoflife.earth is for them. And then I have my own private, I act a lot as a person, as a consultant, the permaculture designer consultant. And this is for whatever is needed. Okay. I have 5 to 6 years experience traveling around the tropics and the temperate and cooler climates. Visiting projects, learning a lot, designing a lot, creating associations, how a technique in Mexico can work in Corsica or in Colorado, right? And how to reassess the technique to make it work because it's useful, right? So I can design small gardens. I can design large acreage. I'm visiting a very nice property, 98 acres of land. Wow. In the south of France. It's a castle, and they want to present the possibility of permaculture designing the place to the investors. So they asked me to really study the land and propose, like, okay, what kind of diversified activities can can you bring and can you have, right? So it's super interesting. There's they have 360 degrees views, so different slopes, degrees, different orientations. They have little valleys, the little creeks, up, down. It's really interesting. How the governance model, like this is very important. Like preparedness also comes with the governance model. Who is going to take care of the decisions, right? All this. So I would say I am like a little bee that goes where it's needed. And the only thing I can really bring is my past experience and what I've been visiting and knowing, and how can we apply it and remix it and remasterize it with your intention, what you have on your land, what your land can offer, and be that interface in between the land, like your land, and you, your family, your community, what you guys want, and how this melts together and creates that intersection, right? We are right here. We are the translators. Permaculture designers are translators, are mediators. So yeah, that's it. I love my job. It's not a job, it's a passion.
Great stuff. And you forgot about us teaming up for Permaculture Europe.
Yeah, sure. That's it.
So we haven't actually got a name for you, but we're trying to work together, working on bridging that language basically between permaculture and how do you present it, basically the corporations. And the EU is very big on their legislation, and it's so you have developers on one side who want to do all these things and they understand the language, and then it's how do you bridge that permaculture language across. They offer them solutions to help them become more regenerative and actually do good instead of greenwashing.
That's it.
Yeah.
In the bank, work in progress.
Yeah, work in progress, slow and steady solutions. That's on that one. It's just it's a good winter project. So for me at Vine, we have the beginners blogs at vinepermaculture.com/blog, where we have articles for beginner gardeners. Just it's very introductory level, the composting, water catchment, things like that. You'll not hear about swales. There's hugelkultur on there, but I think it's the very basic concept just to get you started gardening. Then we have the pdcdpro.com, which is show sponsored by. So we have our own course on there. Plus we have other courses will be on there soon, like Jason's permaculture business design course, Ollie's mapping course. So there'll be things like what do you do after a PDC. Go to pdcdpro.com and we'll have links to various courses and options there just to help you after what do you do when you get a PDC if you're struggling. So as well as listening to this podcast, you have some solid options there with people that have been on the show, and I've done the courses as well, so I'll be able to give you feedback on that. Guys, thank you very much for great talk.
Thanks, Cormac.
Yeah, thank you, Cormac.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
And thank you to all of you. It was nice to see you again, or nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you.
Yeah, maybe I'll see you down at the Midwest Preparedness Festival sooner than you think.
Oh, yes. Next month. Very good. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. So that's been the Permaculture Vine podcast on permaculture and preparedness. I think we've veered off now and again, but it's a topic we can always come back at again. So see you all next week. Cheers.